Okay, guys, so GDragon did another interview. This one was a sit down in what looks like his recording studio. If you weren't satisfied with the answers from the interview that he did in front of the police station before and after his 4-hour investigation, well, we have another interview to break down, and he could not help himself throw some shade. So you know how I said in the last interview in front of the police station, he came like he was sort of like re-entering this dimension of normal people and did not really have kind of that, humble demeanor that a lot of Korean people have when they're in such a sticky situation. Well, apparently he really wanted to address that because he feels like he is unfairly maligned in the press and whatnot, and I don't blame him. He looked like when he was coming out of the car and going to the police station, like he kind of is like reintegrating into like normal people world, and he understands that it could have come off a little bit wrong to the eyes of a very judgmental public. Now, you know how I said like most people in that situation, they kind of take like this false humility. I call it false because I'd rather have GDragon just be him rather than this whole false kind of like, as if he's like, people are just like bowing to the king. And he sort of, I think, tried to step in that direction. In this interview, he tried to play it real low-key, real humble, but look, he is who he is. He says what he says. He thinks what he thinks. So the shade could not help but drip over the sides. So in this interview, essentially it was with Yonhap News and their TV arm. So it's like the Associated Press. It's a very well established and trusted news outlet for being a little bit more just kind of vanilla. Just tell us the facts, not too much of editorializing. And people said the interviewer was copying his style from the police station. I don't know, maybe he did, maybe he was subconsciously, or maybe he just thought like, I have all those colors, I have that outfit, I have that blue shirt, I have a navy. So that wasn't a hard outfit to piece together or, put on like by random choice, but whatnot is probably, making GDragon feel more comfortable. It looked like it was a very much supposed to be a friendly interview. And so the reporter did, though, have to ask the very direct question. So he said like, yo, okay, why are you here today? GDragon said like, I'm here to set the record straight. And then he just really bluntly asked, you ever done drugs? And he says, I've never done drugs, never received drugs. So he is GDragon, basically saying the same thing he said at the police station. No, 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 and never. Then he was asked, so how do you think like the test it will come out? And he's like, of course it's gonna come out because I've never done drugs. If it does come out that there are drugs in the system, then that would be very weird. He said, I would like this to be confirmed and over and done with. And when he was asked like, well, why did you act all kind of like, why you were doing like, kind of weird movements and stuff like that? And he's like, look, GDragon was like, look, I felt uncomfortable because I was nervous and I'm a human myself. And he went on to say like he has no connection or relationship with the bar manager or the doctor under investigation. He's like, I don't even know who that doctor is. I would really like to know myself. And, who is this bar manager? So, basically saying like, no. But in a weird way, though, I don't think he ever really said like, I never went to that place. And even if he did go to that place, you guys, I don't think it's that big of like a huge scandal, because a lot of the times when you go to those types of places, you are called out by people who are higher than you in the industry or business. Like you basically have no choice. You gotta show up. And especially in a place like that expensive, that exclusive, the person calling you is probably going to be a lot more powerful, and you basically, if you're in this entertainment business, you gotta go. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply the same if, like, let's say you're like, maybe I should just go again, on my own money. And that is essentially what Lee Sun-gyun, the first star to be wrapped up in this latest drug investigation, seemed to have, gone down the path. I'm not saying he probably, went there every time just on his own volition, but it looks a little bit like, more than just doing it for like after work drinks. Now, GDragon also said that, he did not remove his hair or color his hair for over a year and a half, because recently there's been a police statement saying like, ooh, this looks so sus, because it looked like when he came to the station, all of it had been removed, and from basically neck down. And there was a lot of backlash against the police on that, because first of all, there hasn't been really like any solid evidence for even starting this investigation. And some of these summons and things for evidence gathering and interrogation even were like canceled because of a lack of evidence. And so GDragon wanted to address that. But if you guys are wondering like, okay, what up until this point has been revealed by the police about why GDragon has come under suspicion and is under investigation, it's because of the testimony of the bar manager who is like at the epicenter of this drug investigation. This woman that also is supposed to have been the one that supplied drugs or took the celebrities to her house and all that kind of stuff. And that essentially is the only loose connection between Lee Sun-gyun of Parasite and GDragon. Essentially, it's just the same bar manager throwing accusations about both of those celebrities. There's no real, in that way, it looks like it's somewhat connected. Like, why did it happen at the same times? Because the same girl saying like, ooh, Parasite star over here, and GDragon over here, both been into my bar, and her testimony was it seemed very loose and weak. Like, I'm surprised the police went forward on that part, unless they're not saying some other parts. But she just said like, oh, well, I went into the bathroom after GDragon was in there, and there was like a suspicious, like, packaging. Basically she's implying that it was like a wrapper or something of illicit substances. And then he started acting weird. So it wasn't even like she's saying like, I saw him directly or anything like that. It was just kind of like, well, the bathroom was, there was something weird in the bathroom. Girl, who knows like how many people used that bathroom before he did? Unless, are you now the janitor too? I thought you was the bar manager, and then the mini madam of the hoes, and then the girl who takes the celebrities to, I mean, like, now they got you on cleaning too? So GDragon also, threw shade. Now let's get into some of this shade at that girl. He's like, well, I don't know if you can really trust what she says or what comes out of her mouth, because isn't she under investigation, and isn't she somebody who has had a record and a track record of lying and being totally shady in this business? Yeah. So he basically saying like all these headlines of removing all my body hairs out of context. And yeah, do I think perhaps he could have gotten laser treatment done? Because there's that whole thing with like Korean celebrities, even like your underarm body hair, like even if you're wearing a shirt, there's this kind of like etiquette thing in Korean entertainment that whenever you raise your arm, you kind of like cover it, even if you have nothing showing, and even if you are wearing a shirt. That's just kind of like the whole etiquette of the situation. And so I could see how they would get, laser treatment, and if you get it lasered off, if like you can't grow your hair back no matter how hard you try. And some people, I'm sure, maybe went for the full enchilada. So he's saying, that was totally taken out of context. And then he addressed the weird body movements before very, very specifically. He said, I know that as a celebrity, I should be able to withstand and have some patience against this type of disparagement in the press, but he said that it was truly agonizing. And so he said, look, I've been an entertainer since I was 6 years old, so my body movements are a little bit freer than most regular people. I've been dancing a lot, so, like my body moves, and yeah, you know what? If you want something special on stage, the people who do that real special, I mean, yes, some people can turn it on and off, but a lot of the times that extra energy does carry off into a real life. I've told this story before, but the loud comedians, they loud in real life too, and they don't even realize it. And so that's probably, somewhat, having to do with the way that he moves. Then he also said, in terms of being very slow with his words now, which said exactly what I mentioned in the other video, that at a certain point, GDragon said that he had to become very careful in what he said and what his words represented. So he said that putting together those thoughts just takes a bit longer, that he's carefully deliberating and not just talking gibberish. So he addressed that part, and then he threw the ultimate shade. He's like, because he was slouching and just acting casual, and then he's stood up, sat up straight. He's like, well, wouldn't it be more weird if I sat like this? And then the interviewer's like, yeah, that looks a little bit weird.
제가 이렇게 하면은 이상하지 않습니까?
좀 이상하긴 하네요.
예.
그러니까 그 부분도 있고, 근데 궁금했던 점 좀 전에 많이 내 말에 대한
so he's just being him. So that was essentially his interview, and it seems like the tide is turning, towards GDragon, saying this is a little bit nuts. Now, what do we know about Lee Sung-gyun, the Parasite star? Because again, all of this celebrity stuff, you throw them out in front of the investigation bus. The people who should be investigated sitting, laughing in the back of the bus, being like, hey, the heat is off of me. So the heat was a little bit off of Lee Sung-gyun, but Lee Sung-gyun is also a sacrificial lamb. But what has he admitted so far in his police interrogation? He went back again. Well, he said that, yeah, he does know that bar manager in question, but he said that she tricked me. So he did admit that he took or ingested whatever illicit substance from this bar manager, and said that, but he had no idea what it was or that it was illegal. Now, his fast test of drugs turned out negative. His comprehensive test turned out negative and inconclusive. So the samples that he gave were negative except for his leg hair, and they said that there wasn't enough mass on it or something like that, that it came back inconclusive or not testable, and they might have to do it again. Apparently, the traces stay in your leg hair longer than other hair, and that is essentially how they got the JYJ guy before. And so the police said that they're going to perhaps call him in again for questioning and collecting additional hair analysis. Now, the thing is, you guys, this throwing celebrities in front of this like this, they're essentially, somewhat like the victims, and they're being now their role. The way that this kind of is manipulated is that their role is not the victim, is more of the perpetrator, whereas the real perpetrators, the bar manager and Miss Dairy Queen, who has basically disappeared from the news, they may be the actual people who are really the ones that the public should be focused on. And if the public is not focused on them, then even the investigators are focused a little bit less on them. That's the goal. The investigators should be focused on the actual real people who should be getting in trouble for things, and not the sideshows. But that's the strategy. And so, yeah, we heard nothing about really the Dairy Queen, and we're not hearing so much about the other faces that might be involved in this. So that's essentially That's the trick. That is the trick. And so it's kind of sad that how GDragon is paying for all them tricks. And, you know, he's kind of the biggest victim right now of this. Then Lee Sun-gyun. But the police are pressing on Lee Sun-gyun because he did admit, you know, even if the test came out negative, he did admit that he took something. And he did have on record paying like over $300,000 to the bar manager. So people are just like, nobody does that. Like, nobody really does that unless there is something there to hide, or there's something, you know, like you feel good. Like, who's gonna part with, you know, he's rich, but that seems like a really significant amount of money to pay a bar girl, and for what? And even, you know, according to Doug, and they even like saw that, like, oh, the wife had to sell one of their, real estate properties because, you know, the scandal's going on, and was it because of this situation? Who knows? And stuff like that. So it's not as if, you know, there's just, that is just like nothing. It is something. And so the police are looking into it. And then obviously it looks like the bar manager, and probably supplied by Miss Dairy Queen, a list or a hit list or a blacklist or something, kind of a information list. And she has in the past told people who she's conspired with to say, like, here's the list, here's information, go make a deal with the police and the prosecutors. See if something can happen from this celebrity blacklist. So yeah, that's a bit shady, but I'm glad that GDragon was able to make this interview, calm it down, try to show a different side, please the public. It was literally to please the public, but still let his shade spill out, because, I mean, that's what we like him for, right? Because obviously, you know, it looks like people are always trying to put he reminds us that people are always putting other people in cages and, you know, restrictions, because they probably don't like the restrictions in the cages that he's in. So he's gonna, you know, he's like the freeing spirit. All right, guys, what do you think? Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye.
물론 이제 어느 정도 수사기관에서의 결과가 나온다면 모든 것을 아실 수가 있을 것이고, 또 오늘 이야기한 이 내용에 대한 내용도 아마 시청하시는 시청자분들이 또 직접 평가를 할 거라고 생각이 듭니다.
예.
뭐 힘들게 나와주셨는데 오늘 함께 해주셔서 고맙습니다.
제가 감사드립니다. 예.
고맙습니다.